Although it's been said that purchases like the Internaut membership and the premium Battle Pass are worth it, today I decided to really break down the value of the Battle Pass. While there are rewards like polychromes and an A-rank W engine that seem appealing, the real question I wanted to answer is whether this is actually worth it. And so to answer this question, I calculated the value of everything that you get from this Battle Pass, and so without further ado, let's get into it. Now in regards to the free Battle Pass, there is amazing value from completing and receiving these rewards. To be specific, the pass that everyone has access to gives 30 official investigator logs, 45 senior investigator logs, 28 W engine power modules, 30 W engine energy modules, 5 Boopons, 5 Bangbu algorithm modules, 9 Bangbu system widgets, 6 ether batteries, 500,000 dennies, 1 hamster cage pass, and 1 tuning calibrator. Among the rewards that you receive though, the investigator logs and dennies stand out as they especially have great value. This is because the early and late game of ZenlessZoneZero both require a lot of these. To be more specific though, you actually need 300 of these senior investigator logs to level a character to 60. So as you might imagine, getting these from the Battle Pass helps a lot in an attempt to reach this goal. That said, the cost of upgrading in this game is also very expensive, so therefore getting any amount of dennies at all is also extremely desirable too. For pre-farmers in fact, upgrading an S-rank character and their W engine typically requires a staggering 4,105,000 dennies, so let's not forget just how impactful these being included are. Moving from these, you might also be curious about each Battle Pass reward in general, so I decided to convert each of their values directly to energy. Among my findings for the free Battle Pass, the highest total value came from the dennies and ether batteries. Between these two, over 760 energy alone was provided, and based on the overall items available from the pass, these were definitely some of the most important. Now before I move on to the paid rewards, you might have noticed that I didn't address the tuning calibrator, the Boopons, or the hamster cage. To be clear, I did calculate a value for each of these items, but given that their exact worth can vary depending on event rewards, availability through new content, or just the fact that some of these are limited purchases in certain store, it felt wrong to only assess the Battle Pass assuming these added values. That said, I then did calculate the overall value of the Battle Pass in terms of energy and monetary value. My findings from this were that the free pass, including all rewards, was equivalent to roughly 3,015 energy, which is also equal to roughly 13 days of energy and $47.21, assuming all additional rewards. Now context does need to be added here, as the pulls or master tapes were unable to be calculated as an energy value, so therefore its calculated worth was instead evaluated at $9.90 or $1.98 per single pull. In terms of the paid pass, there are a few things that you should know before you even consider buying it. Let's begin with the fact that the pass has a $10 and $20 version. Additionally, in regards to this discount, as far as I can tell, this pass has been on sale for $20 instead of $21 since the game was released. So in terms of the actual value of this discount, I'm unsure. However, when you purchase the paid version of the pass, you gain additional rewards like with polychromes, pulls, and an A-rank W engine of your choice. But as I'm sure you might imagine, I go over the W engine value specifically in its own later section. Let's now break down the paid items in the Battle Pass. First, you are given 177 senior investigator logs, 118 W engine energy modules, 32 Bangbu system widgets, 5 Boopons, 6 ether batteries, 900,000 dennies, 1 hamster cage pass, 780 polychromes, 30 hi-fi mastery copies, and 312 original chips if you reach the max level. Similar to the free pass, this also provides investigator logs alongside valuable dennies, and these are incredibly helpful. Now to be clear, these don't have the highest calculated energy value compared to other items in the pass, but since they're so necessary for leveling and upgrading characters in general, they're amazing rewards nonetheless. As an interesting side note, the combined investigator log you gain from maxing the free and paid Battle Pass actually adds up to 75% of a single character's total needed EXP if your goal is to level them to 60. And regarding the dennies, you instead acquire roughly 38% of the total amount needed if your goal is to level a character, but not accounting for the W engine. So if you're someone who wants to pre-farm, has bought the premium Battle Pass, and plans on maining a single character, leveling the paid pass to max will actually help cover a lot of the necessary materials to level up an agent. When evaluating just the amount gained from the premium pass, however, the 177 senior logs accounted for 843 energy, while the dennies were equivalent to 720. With just these two items alone, the amount of energy gained is equivalent to 6.5 days of energy, and that alone is insane to think about. Now, despite this, there are other important things gained from the paid pass, and that includes EXP modules that increase the level of your W engine. After calculating these values for 118 modules to energy, this came out to a value of 437. Now, what's also interesting about the modules is that the total EXP gained from this, just like with the character EXP, accounts for an insane amount of the total EXP needed, with the W engine granting you 83% of the total needed amount. And so, between the investigator logs and the W engine modules provided alone, the Battle Pass can provide you with most of the needed levels of an agent and their W engine, should you choose to use these resources on a single character. Now, regarding the overall value of the pass, it is worth mentioning that the premium pass has an equivalent total value to 5,015 energy, and this is roughly 21 days of stored batteries or $70.02. As with the free pass, however, there were a few items on this list that weren't as realistic to include value-wise, and so if taking out special items like Bangbu widgets, Boopons, or hamster cages, this was instead equal to 3,758 energy, aka 16 days of batteries or $54.43. In case you were also curious, the Max Pass, aka the $20 upgrade, did also have roughly $6.19 worth of value, but unless you're someone who wants to buy everything out anyway, or unless you're someone that really likes the cosmetics from purchasing this, its value is much more questionable. At this point, you might have also noticed that I didn't include the value of the W engine that you gain from the Battle Pass, and truthfully, that's because there's really only two W engines currently worth considering. Electro Lip Gloss does have its place as a usable engine for characters like Yanagi or Bernice, and it's true, this does perform decently assuming you reach rank 5 on it, but as it stands, this is one of the only engines worth pulling for, as its peers are either too conditional or actually provide so little value that free event engines outperform it instead. This is certainly the case for options like Cannon Rotor, which is actually more than 20% worse than signature options for attack agents, and in addition to this, it's oftentimes 3 to 7% worse than just using something like Starlight Engine. Engines like these have also only gotten worse with new event releases as well, since engines like Mercado Desire also have crit rate as its main stat, which further devalues Cannon Rotor. Among other options, Unfettered Game Ball isn't the worst choice compared to the rest. That said, though the added crit rate and energy regen can be helpful depending on which agent or lineup you're using, the main concern with this engine is maintaining the passive's buff while also using it in encounters where its effect can actually activate. Overall though, this alone shouldn't be the deciding factor anyway in whether you purchase the Battle Pass. The final option that you might have considered using, especially if you bought the $10 Battle Pass at Zenless's launch, is Spring Embrace. Now, to be clear, the concept of this engine is decent as the increased energy regen could be interesting, but given that the current roster of defense agents don't prefer to be on field for long, its condition is much more difficult to activate. In addition to this, said 3 defense agents that currently exist also aren't as dedicated to buffing as they are to applying daze. Because of this, the overall energy and usefulness of this engine as opposed to others is lessened, but who knows, maybe in the future this will have a use. Now, this next section might confuse you, but I promise it's actually very relevant for ZenlessZoneZero. Now, although Zenless and Honkai Star Rail are completely separate entities, the two development teams have publicly been shown to share ideas with each other. This led me to analyze the Honkai Star Rail Battle Pass to see just how valuable that one was. Impressively, the current premium Battle Pass, including all levels, reward you with 9,766 energy, aka 41 days of stamina, or $108.63 worth of value. Now again, comparing the Battle Passes of two separate games can be dishonest, as ZenlessZoneZero has been released for way shorter, but because of that, I calculated the value of the 1.0 HSR Battle Pass and discovered that its earlier worth was actually 3,311 energy, which is equal to 14 days of stamina or $50.48. Now this adjustment to the Battle Pass essentially doubled its value, and that's absolutely wild to consider. Because of this, I was very intrigued then by the possibility of ZenlessZoneZero doing the same in the future, but to be clear, the added value was mostly sourced from Honkai Star Rail, adding things like the variable dice, wishful resin, and relic remains to the pass. Between these additions alone, over 4,933 energy was added to the pass. Now, although it would be nice for Hoyoverse to increase other resources for an updated future Battle Pass, just getting similar items like these in ZenlessZoneZero would be a major win for players who are already or considering purchasing the Battle Pass. Now, with all this math, it's time we actually break down the pros and cons of the premium Battle Pass. Pros: the pass has several W engines to choose from, and Electro Lip Gloss is especially useful for anomaly agents. EXP for characters in W engines does help progress through the story, especially before you have the ability to farm out new stages. Now, for the cons, honestly, the pass does cost money, and aside from Electro Lip Gloss, most of these W engines are pretty niche or not worth selecting at this time. Now, I know that I just said that this is a pros and cons list, but I actually did have arguably neutral observations about this Pass 2 that does give you some more context for why this decision is a bit more gray than you think. Now, for neutral, depending on how you see things, gaining anywhere between $54.43 up to $70.02 can be amazing considering that it only costs $10. But at the same time, you could argue that a title from the same company like Honkai Star Rail has a battle pass that provides roughly $30 more in value. In addition to this, calculating the cost of refreshes before the price goes up led me to find that they cost 74 cents each, which you could then argue makes the added monetary value not as insane as you think. Now, to add to this, much of Honkai Star Rail's worth also comes from things like fuel, EXP, or direct character level materials, where in ZenlessZoneZero, boopons and Bangbu system widgets can sometimes blur or skew the pass's true value, depending on how valuable you consider these items. Now, with all this math and my calculations completed, I have some thoughts and a conclusion on whether the premium battle pass is worth it. To get things started, in its current state, the $20 upgrade is simply not worth it for people who are on the fence about spending. Now, that said, there are exceptions to this, since purchasing it for the energy if you're desperate or for the neat cosmetics can definitely be worth it on a case-by-case or person-by-person basis. The $10 premium battle pass, however, is a completely different story. As of now, there are a lot of reasons to purchase this pass, but equally as many to hold off. If you're someone who's just starting out or didn't pre-farm materials for a character, the rewards you gain from the pass can definitely help you towards leveling or upgrading your agents. If you're struggling with anomaly W engine options as well, you could also use the premium battle pass as a way to access and receive lip gloss. And even beyond all this, if you are someone who isn't at max rank yet, the added energy usage gained from this pass can definitely also contribute towards getting to certain level breakpoints, where you'll then have access to new content or domains with better rewards, like with disk drive farming. Now, on the other hand, if you're someone who's playing the game constantly, pre-farming and making sure to get as many resources as possible, all while also completing all endgame content anyways, yes, I also see a very good reason for why you shouldn't buy the battle pass. To begin with, the rewards from the battle pass aren't distributed the second that you purchase it, and so if you are someone buying the battle pass for an immediate surge of resources, good luck, as you are gated weekly on this pass. Now, there is one more detail that I've held on to up until now to mention, and that's the fact that ZenlessZoneZero also releases a ridiculous amount of events that have plenty of character leveling materials with every single version. And unlike with other games where completing events can take hours upon hours with no skip button each time that they're introduced, Zenless's are much quicker, with the exception of actually interesting or more enjoyable game modes like the Fall Guys or Cheesetopia events. Because of this, I do think it's reasonable to skip on premium battle pass purchases, especially if you aren't in a rush to level a character to max, or if you fall in one of the categories as I mentioned earlier. Speaking from personal experience, I do also often find myself pre-farming an agent's skills, levels, and ascensions prior to their release, just for me to then receive like a million of these resources from the events in said version. So in short, if you're someone who's underleveled, want electro lip gloss, want more resources, or just don't feel like pre-farming, yeah, buying the premium battle pass is probably for you. However, if you aren't someone who needs the extra energy, if you have loads of agent signatures, or if you aren't in a rush in terms of the game, no, you definitely don't need to buy the premium battle pass. As always though, guys, that's going to be it for today's video. I hope you learned something while watching, but as a reminder, I am no financial advisor, and you should definitely spend responsibly and research before you make a decision. Thanks again for watching though. Feel free to like, comment, turn on the notification bell, and subscribe. Please don't shoot me, as I did consider different options for how things could be evaluated. Feel free to check out the rest of my socials, and I'll see you all in the next one. Stay safe, stay healthy. Good night.